Hi, this is Louisa Tannermanson, and I've noticed recently over the last couple of weeks that lots of people in different forums have been saying that they've been feeling ascension symptoms or lots of different physical things that they don't quite understand, that they're feeling a bit discombobulated and they're not sure how to handle the energies of the moment. So I thought I'd have a look at the astrology and look at the full moons and the new moons and what's going on really at the moment to see where the natural areas of release are. So for those of you that have got an interest in this kind of thing, this could be useful. I should just start this video by mentioning I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not an alternative doctor, I'm an astrologer. And I do some intuitive healing, but I don't claim to be some kind of special doctor whiz kid or anything like that. So from that perspective, this is for entertainment purposes only. That said, there's a lot going on astrologically. As many of you will already know, we've had the Grand Square, which has pitted Pluto against Jupiter, against Uranus, against Mars. And they've been across all four elements, so earth, air, fire and water. And we've also got a very, very powerful, very healing Grand Trine in water at the moment, comprising of Jupiter, with a sort of combination of Neptune and Chiron, and also Saturn in Scorpio. So these two things alone are extremely powerful going, these are things that are affecting us all in a really powerful way at the moment. The Grand Square is the thing that's bringing out our tensions, and I won't talk too much about what it's indicating socially, environmentally, personally, etc., because I think we're already feeling the effects of that. Ultimately, it's shaking our structures, the things that we've always felt safe with, and it's challenging us to take on new roles, new personas, and new attitudes, new belief systems. So it's how do you integrate that energy safely, and I think that's why a lot of people have been feeling dizzy. I've had 2 fortnights of vertigo feelings over the last 6 months as this Grand Square has been kicking into action. Loads of people have reported dizziness, ringing in the ears, and nausea, heaviness, tiredness, etc. And I see this as integrating to the energies that are coming in. Now, the question is, how do you release those energies? How do you assimilate them? How do you work with them on a body level? Well, I think the Grand Trine, first, and personally, my own opinion is that the Grand Trine is integral within this. For those of you that look into astrology, the Grand Trine is a really powerful, nurturing, supportive formation, especially in the water signs. With the influence of Neptune, you have an oversensitivity, almost an oversensitivity and a receptivity to the energies around, and that's amplified via the trine and Jupiter. But it also can stabilise as we understand how the energies of the Piscean Neptune energy comes in. We can understand that there's a new need for a different type of structures in our life, as represented by Scorpio, Saturn in Scorpio. So that it's how do you get that balance right? And Chiron, the wounded healer, which has been largely conjunct Neptune, and is the two of them are parting their ways very, very slowly at the moment. I think that's really indicating that the emotions that have been coming up for review have been quite painful. They have triggered on stuff from past hurts. So again, it's how do you use that energy? How do you make it work for you? Especially under Jupiter's amplification, because Jupiter amplifies everything. Especially in Cancer, it makes it very very watery, and it really makes us look at our past histories, our stories that we've told ourselves. So this is an energetic healing that's happening at the moment. This is about us letting go of our crap, so to speak. It's letting go of our stories, letting go of our past, letting go of the themes that we've associated with ourselves, our attachments, quite simply. Now, it's a water trine, and it's a commonly held belief that up to 70% of our brain is water, and in various parts of our body we have varying degrees of percentages as to how much of that is water and how much isn't. But if you look back and think about the percentage of water in our brain, you can see that water is one of the most important things. And with the Grand Trine in water at the moment, it feels like there's something very, very fundamental going on in our bodies. The Grand Square is the thing that's bringing up the tensions, and I see that those tensions can be released emotionally through Jupiter and the connection between the Grand Square and the Grand Trine. So it's about changing your internal waters. So what I see as being particularly helpful, which for those of you that are very in tune with their bodies, may pose no surprise at all, but it's about getting used to your waters and changing them. So it is about drinking lots of fresh water. It is about changing the way we nourish our bodies, our intake, and our elimination. Now, water as an element really indicates things like our memories and our feelings from a medical astrology perspective. And it really looks at the communication between the cells and the water that everything is bathing in. So it's really essential that we get our waters right. If you imagine a fish in a bowl, you wouldn't expect that fish to thrive in really horrible waters. And if you think that you're, for those of you that are familiar with the Emoto experiments with water, where just the intention behind a feeling can influence the quality of the water. I'm going to put links to all these things that I mentioned in the video. You can see that the thoughts, the memories, the beliefs and the imprinting that you have in your body will affect the quality of the water. So this is all about changing your water, changing the environment that your soul is living. Like this body is the environment that you are living in. It's not about getting healthy in the world, it's getting healthy inside. So how can you change the balance of your water? How can you get the best water in your body? So drink lovely water, but you need to be thinking different thoughts and memories which will be affecting the water. I wouldn't really think about putting too much into your body that's poisonous. I mean, duh, that's great advice anyway. But I mean, we all do it. But I, for one, am starting to think very differently. And when I'm eating or drinking something at the moment, I'm thinking, would I bathe in it? You know, because if you get that yuck feeling when you think about bathing in, I don't know, strong coffee or loads of ketchup or mayonnaise, and you think, well, maybe I don't want to be putting that stuff in my body. But when you're looking at juicy fruit and things that look really natural and nice, and you think, well, it probably wouldn't do me any harm if I spread banana on my face or avocado face mask. You know, you get a feeling that it might be okay internally. So use those kind of natural connections to rebalance yourself. But it is about letting go of your emotions, because as you let go of those emotions and let that love vibration in and allow the assimilation to take place, then the Grand Water Trine will assist you in releasing those. So it's about getting rid of all those negative memories that are stored in your tissue and releasing them. Now, if we look at the astrology, I'm not a medical astrologer, you know, I will just say that, but the Grand Square is obviously involved in air, fire, earth and water. And if you think that earth broadly represents your bones, your teeth, your structure, so your internal structure. For those people who have structural problems, like I've had a bad back on and off over the years and dodgy hips and stuff, you know, I'm sure that with Pluto going through Capricorn at the moment, that is making itself known to you. Fire with Uranus in Aries at the moment, Uranus energy is very, very spontaneous and explosive. And it really does look at our digestive chemicals. It looks at the way we see things. It's very forward thinking in our body. So it's about moving our body forward. So it really could be indicative of being accidental, being unbalanced, not being able to see far enough and quickly enough, not having quick enough reactions. And that also goes for air, which really looks at our nervous system and our reflexes. And having Mars there, retrograde, has been disconnecting people from how they use their reflexes and making people feel very unnatural in the way they move their bodies. So this tension is building up and has been amplified by the Grand Trine, but I see that you can release that by going through your emotions and and trying to change your metaphysical and physical waters. So imagine yourself cooling and cleaning and cleansing. Now, I see that as going on really until the 17th of July, when Jupiter really finally moves out of that Grand Trine position and goes into Leo, which is a fire sign, which is warm and it's embracing and it's passionate. And I see things really moving forward then for people and their feelings. So I want to now just quickly just touch on the new moons and full moons over the next over the next 3 months, just to give you an idea as to what might be useful, because the new moon in Taurus, which is on the 29th of April, so it's next week, that has a very grounding energy. With that, you've got the moon and the sun in Taurus, and you've also got Venus conjunct Chiron and Neptune in Pisces. So we've got a really lovely, nourishing, supportive setup for that new moon. It's a great time to release stuff through Jupiter and Pluto, which are nicely connected to everyone involved, everything involved. So it really is an integration of the initial grand square energy. So those tensions that have been brought up over the last 2 weeks, over the time of the grand square, this is the time to embody them and to relax into them and to start thinking, okay, what did I learn? How am I going to use that? What am I going to learn? How am I going to use that? It's very practical, but it's also very nourishing, and it's giving us a little bit of a respite, and it's allowing us to connect back with nature and connect back with purpose. It's very instinctual, so it should really calm and soothe fractious nerves, which is good. So it's giving us a little bit of a breather. Now, a couple of weeks later, when we've got the full moon in Scorpio, and I've already blogged about that, so check that out because there'll be a lot more information about that. That is a really potent full moon. So I see that as giving you a bit of relaxation leading up to the full moon in Scorpio, which is, to my mind, a full moon configuration that allows us to really release anything to do with guilt, anything to do with authority issues. In that one, we've got the moon conjunct Saturn opposite the sun. And for those of people that are interested in transactional analysis, again, I'll put links in at the bottom to that. The moon represents our childish selves, the sun, the adult selves, and the Saturn is the parent. So it's like we've got this amazing setup to analyse where we're parenting too much, where we're being judgmental, where we're being childish, and all the power games that exist in families, but also just in our own self. So it's very much about releasing guilt, releasing issues to do with authority, and becoming adult. And by adult, I'm referring to not being judgmental, and not being childish, not being irresponsible. It's about finding that balance. So it's a really powerful full moon, and it's not one that's going to let up. And at that full moon, the grand square and the grand trine are in full effect. They really are still in full effect. So it's a very, very potent time for you. New moon in Gemini then, that's on the 28th of May, 7:40 English time, UK time. And I see that as being a relationship balancer. It's very light-hearted, but it's very motivated. So we've got the sun and moon in Gemini, and it's a lovely trine from them to Mars. Now, at the time that that's happening in the UK, that's giving us the 7th house, 10th house feel, which is very much about how to balance relationships and progress them, and how to forward our own identity in a way that allows us to recognise our needs without shutting off other people's needs. But it's about progressing. It's a very forward, future orientated new moon. And if you think about the air, it's about nervous system, it's about reflexes, and it's about moving on very quickly. So it's a very futuristic one, very useful. Then we've got the full moon in Sagittarius on the June the 13th, 5:12 a.m. UK time. Now it's I see this as a bit of a firecracker, in the same way as I see the full moon in Scorpio as a firecracker. Now, what's leading me to this is that there aren't any natural points of release for this full moon, apart from Mars in Libra and Uranus in Aries, which you know, Mars is a fiery planet by nature, and Uranus is in a fire sign. So I see this as quite a potent setup. So we've got the Sun conjunct Mercury opposite the Moon, obviously. So there's the natural full moon tensions. But the only release for the Sun is to trine Mars. So it's almost suggesting that the build-up of emotions is only going to come out through action, motivation, and movement. There's not much else. It's not like a softening or oh, let's just have a little kiss and a cuddle. It's direct, it's action orientated. And then the Moon, so the emotional side of what's going on and the build-up of the emotions, the Moon's opposite Mercury during this. So that's always an indication of a time when we have loose words and get into fights and say things a little bit too hastily without engaging our brain. So the Moon's opposite Mercury and then trine Uranus. So, you know, what we're feeling, we're saying, and we're saying, and we're saying, and we're saying it, and we're not really thinking, is it a tactful way? It's coming out sudden, extreme, and it's hitting on the Uranus in Aries. Now, by that time, the 13th of June, the Grand Square has already eased off. It's now just a T-square, which is great. Jupiter has moved out of position, so there are some avenues to escape. But the other thing that I really don't like about this full moon is also that Venus is opposite Saturn, and that's an exact moment at the time of the full moon, exact to the very degree in second, and that's occurring over Taurus and Scorpio. So Venus opposite Saturn is actually quite a lonely configuration. So anyone with a real flavour and anyone with a real taste and yearning for loneliness, who seems to connect into loneliness, maybe somebody that's gone through a breakup or something, this could be a very tricky full moon, especially for Sagittarians as well, because it's a full moon in Sagittarius. So I see this as a time when people might be lashing out because they're not really feeling very connected. So this is a full moon really to do with letting go of the fire and the passions and the hurt that creates rash and irresponsible releases. So, you know, bear that in mind. New moon in Cancer on June the 27th at 9:09 a.m. and wow, I think that's quite a positive and glorious new moon. Really, really about growing up and making adjustments and almost rewriting our social, individual and family histories. So you've got the Sun and the Moon conjunct, trining Neptune really nicely. So you've also got the Moon and the Sun and Jupiter in Cancer. So it's a really, really watery, really watery and luscious, dreamy time. And I think if you work with the energies of the new moon and the full moon, and really allow the full moon in Scorpio and the full moon in Sagittarius to release those things that really rancor and really hold you back, then by the time the new moon in Cancer comes along, you'll be really bathed and really rested and nourished. And you should be able to release and work out some of that dizziness, the vertigo, the feeling unbalanced. The more you work out these emotions, the more you'll be cleaning your internal water, as represented by the emotions, and that will just stabilise you. For many of you, this won't be a problem. I experienced a lot of these symptoms prior to the Grand Square. One of my really good healer friends experiences energies about 18 months before they really kick in. So the more intuitive you are, the chances are you've already gone through this process. But the great thing is, the more you cleanse and let go of things, the easier it gets each time. So for a lot of people, I'm hearing that this has been quite a delightful time during the Grand Square where dreams have been implemented. And so for those of you that are in that position, or those of you that are straddling it a little bit like me, then, you know, just use the new and full moons to just progress you and to let go of those little bits incrementally that you want to. Now, the reason why I'm suggesting that is because on the July the 12th, and I see this as quite a critical time, July the 12th, we've got the full moon in Capricorn, but we've also got the Grand Square coming back. But it's coming back with a difference, because whereas the Grand Square that we've been experiencing over the last, ongoing, building and finalising, squaring up and whatnot, it's been Jupiter, Uranus and it has been Pluto and Mars, and they've all been sort of posturing and figuring out where they are and stuff. What's happening at the full moon in Capricorn is that the Sun is taking Jupiter's place. So whereas before Jupiter has been, I mean, Jupiter is going to be on the scene a little bit in this configuration, and also the North Node is also added in. So this is more to do with karmic release. So you've got the Pluto and Moon conjunct in Capricorn, which is allowing us to get very emotional about our authority and almost react in a childish, passionate, willful way where we won't apologise. You know, we'll be writing our own rules and really living by them, squaring off with Uranus and Aries, squaring off with Mars conjunct North Node. So what's being put into motion is real karmic stuff that we're letting go of and recreating. And then that's all opposing the Sun. So I really see this as about us finding our personal authority. So if we just fly back 2 weeks to the new moon in Cancer, where you're starting to rewrite your history, rewrite your social ideas, feeling nourished and supported by who you're becoming. 2 weeks later, on July the 12th, full moon in Capricorn, that is the test. So what I'm seeing is everything from saying just before the beginning of this year that's been building and building and building has been a huge test to see who are you? Who are you? You know, these 6 months will be defining who you are. What are you about? What motivates you? What are you passionate about? Where are you going? How do you want to live your life? Do you feel responsible for other people? Do you feel part of the global community or not? You know, these are all the questions that I see by July the 12th will be answered. And I think from that, that's going to give you some movement and really turbocharge you ahead. Now, the great thing is, 5 days later, that's when Jupiter moves into Leo. And that lovely watery Grand Trine is no more. But it served its purpose. You know, we've had the tensions of the Grand Square, but we've had the nurturing and the water. We've been able to cleanse our feelings, our behaviours, our beliefs over the last 6 months. And by July the 12th, July the 17th, when Jupiter moves on, we're moving on to a fiery, direct, passionate, warm stage where we can take the foot off the brake and start moving forward purposefully. It's good. This is good stuff. I'm really excited. And then by the end of the year, when Saturn finally moves out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius, again, that's really marking the start of a fire phase. And I have to say, I think that will be very exciting. A lot less nebulous, and it's going to motivate people back into action. People are going to start building plans and being cooperative, and yeah, and it's going to be very exciting. So anyway, quite a long video, but I'm really hoping it's useful. I'm hoping it's really useful. Have a look at my blogs about the new moons and full moons, and also about Emoto and his experiments, and just see what works for you and what doesn't. And please leave comments and stay in touch. And if you want to look at the effects of the new moons and full moons with your actual birth chart, then drop me a line. It's louisatannermunson@gmail.com. Bye for now.